Chapter 9 Gluttony of Man. Traveling for another day and a half, circling around the eastern edge of the still flooded Lake Arpa, Enkidu and Tarvin encountered the smell of thick smoke. Fearing the city of Tug may have come under attack, Enkidu urges caution on their approach. Refugio and the others warned that Urar had been wiped out by the Shish. We are not but a 3 days' ride from that city, so it is not unthinkable that they may have raided Tug as well. If the city has come under attack, we must flee, Enkidu says. Fighting against raiders is not something I wish to do. Tarvin is surprised by Enkidu's cold announcement. You of all people would damn a city to destruction rather than assist? Katal'takuk's needs must come first. If we interfere and are killed, we doom everyone in our city to die. It is not preferred, and I likely shall bear that burden on my soul for the rest of my days. But we cannot risk saving our people. I do not believe you, Tarvin shakes his head. You may say this now, but when trouble arises, you will charge head first without hesitation. Not this time, Enkidu whispers. Not likely. Not if the rumors I have heard of this city are true. What rumors? Tug may have fallen into worship of a false god called Mammon. You would not save people from raiders based solely on the god they worship? Enkidu pauses. No, but I cannot support their adherence to this faith. It will not be an easy decision to make. I am greatly conflicted. Conflicted? Tarvin is confused. How can you be conflicted? If people need help, is there not a very clear choice to make? I am tasked with destroying evil, not just protecting people, Enkidu says, hesitant to fully explain his meaning to the young man. Without training as a warrior priest, he will not understand. The increasing spread of dangerous faiths throughout the region is cause for concern. The Yazata have been watching this phenomena with interest. They fear that humanity is sliding into a dark path from which they might never escape. Should too many cities fall to false gods, all of our species may be determined to be irredeemable. Tarvin's eyes widen in shock and fear. And what does that mean? Enkidu takes a deep breath to deliver the psyche-shattering news. They will have us wiped out so that a different species may take over and start anew, hopefully avoiding the mistakes that led to our downfall. Would the Yazata really abandon us like that? Enkidu nods. Why not? Our kind has already abandoned them many times over. If more humans worship evil than good, what is there to save? They must weigh the health of the entire world as a whole. Even one good person should be enough to save us. I refuse to believe they will give up on us. I pray that you are correct. Tug becomes visible ahead. The city gates are ajar, with the left side sunken in several feet. A broken wooden battering ram lies splintered into pieces beside the gate. 2 clouds of smoke rise up like dark omens from the city square. It's clear that whoever attacked the city was prepared for a siege. Numerous ladders are left lying about in varying states of damage. Several mangled bodies are beneath them, likely belonging to raiders that were thrown from the ladders during the siege attempt. I fear that the worst scenario has happened, Enkidu whispers. This city seems to have suffered a terrible attack recently. Enkidu is able to push open the broken gate with little resistance. The left side is so warped that as it moves inward, it leaves a gap that increases the wider it swings. No guards come to investigate or attempt to stop the travelers. Inside the city, all is quiet. This bothers Enkidu greatly, but he holds his words for now. There's no need to frighten Tarvin before they actually know what has transpired. Entering the city, the men are instantly greeted by 2 skeletons burned black and hanging from poles, surrounded by the debris of recent bonfires. Something gruesome truly has transpired here, Enkidu says, keeping a hand on Tievan. Do not let your guard down. Surely someone would have been guarding the gates if the city was just under attack. We do not know how long ago this occurred. It is possible the raiders are still within the city even now. Should we not just turn back? Tarvin asks nervously. We cannot fight off a band of raiders ourselves. We have come too far to turn back now. We press on and face whatever may come. Your bravery is not so great that it can blanket my own fears, Tarvin says. I have a very bad feeling about entering this city. Should there not have been someone to greet us by now? Friend or foe? Someone at least, he whispers, growing more and more nervous by the second. For better or worse, someone should have been posted here, Enkidu replies. We have to take that to mean there is no one available to come. The smell of smoke and death is thick in the air. There's a sense that Enkidu is very familiar with. In his experience, he knows the Tug has suffered some kind of invasion or war. As they move further into the city, the bodies of slain villagers become visible beneath collapsed buildings. Arms and legs lie sticking out from the rubble in twisted agony, never to be rescued. Other bodies are slumped against walls and lying in doorways, clearly slain by swords. Whoever attacked was not in the hunt for slaves to sell, Enkidu whispers. It appears that they took no prisoners. I have yet to see anyone alive, Tarvin whispers. Do you think the entire city has fallen? We must make sure, Enkidu says. If someone is alive, they may need medical assistance. Tarvin smiles, having been right about Enkidu's compassion coming through when it matters. He can pretend to be cold and closed off, but he cares deeply about others. He can never leave people to suffer. Ahead, they see another set of gates. These ones relatively intact, but wide open. The gates lead to a wide-open temple complex with several smaller buildings and a massive set of stone steps leading to an enormous ziggurat. The gates are shut behind them, and the men quickly turn to see numerous villagers blocking their exit. Who are you, and why have you come? An older man with dirty braided hair adorned with beads asks. Enkidu recognizes the sash the man is wearing as that of a priest of the god Mammon. Enkidu's hand tightens on his sword. Get ready to run on my command, he whispers through gritted teeth. What is wrong? Tarvin whispers. He is a priest of Mammon, a bloodthirsty god that revels in human sacrifice. Tarvin looks at the burnt corpses nearby. Fear settles over the young man, yet he looks into the eyes of the villagers. He sees the same fear. It's so good to see that people have survived. We are not your enemies. We have nothing to do with who or whatever attacked your city. We came here on a diplomatic mission with no knowledge whatsoever of your city's crisis. Enkidu steps in front of Tarvin, his hand on his hip ready to draw Tiavan. Hold, he cautions. They do not appear friendly. They just suffered a terrible attack on their city, Tarvin argues. They are just on edge. Were we any different after the Sakari? I will take the lead. Just be ready to react should our conversation sour, Enkidu says. We are representatives of Katal to Cook, he says. Recently, our home was under attack, and a great many lives were lost. Fires have devastated our fields and agriculture. Few of our buildings have not been touched by the destruction. Tug has no need of beggars, Shota, a priest of Mammon, replies with disdain. As you can see, we have our own problems to deal with. What happened here? Enkidu asks. Who attacked you? We did not see it coming, Shota whispers. But it does not matter. We have survived, and Tug will endure as it always has under God's protection. Enkidu grinds his teeth together, but says nothing about Mammon. Tarvin is impressed at Enkidu's restraint, and wonders if he has also been able to rub off on the older man, just as Enkidu has greatly influenced him these past days traveling. I did not see horse tracks in the mud outside the city when we arrived. From where did the attackers come? Enkidu asks. Tarvin eyes his companion with confusion. What are you saying? Surely they were attacked by the Shish. You said it yourself that they have only recently raided Urar. Enkidu sighs inaudibly, his companion not experienced enough to follow his lead. He must adapt to the situation quickly in order to keep both himself and Tarvin safe. I mean to say the fires appear recent, yet if the Shish attacked, their tracks would still be fresh in the mud. Any rains would have washed them away, but also have put out the fires. Shota eyes him carefully, realizing Enkidu is fishing for more information. Both men are clever, and neither wants to give too much away to the other. Neither man is trusting of the other. You ask strange questions, traveler. It was raiders from Shish. They set fires to our homes and plundered our homes for valuables. They sought to make our villagers their slaves. Enkidu believes he has caught Shota in his first lie. The way the raiders moved through the village, killing indiscriminately, they couldn't have been trying to take slaves back as prisoners. The attack seems too personal. Urar was not able to resist, yet Tug was. Where are these great warriors that saved the city? Enkidu asks loudly. I would like to meet such heroic souls. Surely our own city would have been more fortunate to have had men of such valor within its walls. He looks to the nearest guards with their spears fixed on him and Tarvin. Was it you? Are you the heroes that saved Tug? We prayed for our deliverance in our time of need, and our God heard our prayers, Shota interrupts. Perhaps Katal Cook placed her faith in the wrong deity. Heard your prayers? Look around you. Your village is in ruin. What exactly did he do for you? Enkidu asks. Taking Enkidu's words as an insult to the religion, Shota grows angry. He has become tired of Enkidu and his vulgarities. We survived, and all of the raiders that came to torment us are dead. Tell me, what more can one ask for God? And how did your God deliver you from the raiders? Enkidu asks, skeptical that such a powerful fighting force was defeated by a village without a working military. While not nearly as fearsome as the Sakari, the Shish have a reputation as some of the most bloodthirsty and barbaric warriors on the earth. Enkidu begins to put together the clues of what transpired in his head. Most of the city's population is missing, yet they claim to have defeated the Shish. Few of the Shish bodies are lying around. The priest says that it was the doing of Mammon, yet Enkidu finds this hard to believe. Mammon is worshipped through human sacrifice and is known as a gluttonous deity that craves power and adoration. You offered your own citizens up as sacrifice to power up your warriors. Tarvin's eyes widen in horror. What? That cannot be, can it? Shota is slow to respond. The warriors of Tug became extensions of Mammon's power through sacrificial magic. That has nothing to do with any gods, Enkidu shouts. You are using the darkest of magics to convert the lives of human beings into temporary strength boosts. You're more barbaric than the Shish that attacked this city. Hold your tongue, Shota shouts. You will not come to our city uninvited and insult us or our ways. How could you sacrifice your own people? Tarvin whispers in horror. Your friends. Your families. Everyone given to Mammon offered themselves freely to save Tug out of their own strong faith. That is why that little archer bitch is still alive. Offering her up would have done nothing to fend off the raiders.
Archer, Tarvin whispers. You could not mean.
Riders were sent out weeks ago to request aid, but not all returned, Enkidu speaks up angrily. Did our riders make contact with this city?
Shota nods.
Your cursed city sought to draw Tug into needless death and destruction. We offered prayers to Mammon, who instructed us to give the dark messengers to him for punishment. But before we could finish his work, the raiders attacked us.
Enkidu draws his sword enraged.
You sacrificed our people to your blood god? That old man Tidal was right about you. This city is full of immorality and evil. Damn Tug and your evil ways. Kataltakuk would have pulled us down by the demons with them. Mammon keeps us safe. He keeps out the trouble you would bring upon us. I demand that you bring us to this captive that you did not sacrifice, Enkidu says. I must know if they are one of our missing riders. You cannot come here and make demands, Shota growls. You have no leverage. This is our city, and you are not welcome. The guards crowd in around the two men from Kataltakuk.
Enkidu holds Tiavon out towards the city guards.
I do not believe you have enough villagers of faith remaining to make you strong enough to defeat me.
The guards hold their ground with trembling arms and legs.
They dare not show their fear by backing away, but they cannot deny the sheer intimidation brought about by Enkidu's presence.
The confidence and air of the experienced warrior envelops the man and brings with him a fear and an instinctual respect from the other warriors. Even if an enemy opposes him in every way down to core beliefs and morality, they instinctively fear the warrior aspect of him, and know that he is not one to be taken lightly. Tarvin is suddenly pulled down from behind by several villagers, prompting Enkidu to pivot quickly to turn and cut 3 of them down without hesitation. Tarvin withdraws a knife from his belt, bearing it deep into the throat of one of his attackers. Using the distraction, he is able to shove the remaining 2 villagers aside and run back to Enkidu.
We shall never forgive Tug for the atrocity it has performed against us, Enkidu curses. May your fields produce dust forever, and your goats birth only corpses.
Shota holds his hands out, attempting to stay Enkidu's hand before any more blood can be shed. It's obvious that Enkidu was not bluffing. None of them stand a chance against him in combat. He doubts that he would be able to flee to the furnace with any sacrifices before he would be cut down. For the time being, they must give in to the foreigner's demands.
Enough, Shota shouts. We will bring her forth. Hold your devilish blade.
You do not seem to understand who is the devil in this situation, dog of Mammon, Enkidu growls. Shota calls for several of the villagers to bring over a bound and malnourished prisoner. She is covered in dirt and dried blood, and her clothing has long been stripped away in humiliation.
Lianlim,
Tarvin whispers in horror.
What have you done to her?
Whatever Mammon demands, Shota grins. Some days he tells us to beat her, other days to cut her.
Shota leans in close to lick Lianlim's arm.
And sometimes he tells us that her evil must be forced out through other means. He begins to laugh. Since her sacrifice gains us nothing, we have been allowed to keep her alive and her tortures fresh.
Release this child of Kataltakuk,
Enkidu warns, fire in his eyes. Even Tarvin is terrified of the power swelling within the warrior priest. A wind begins to expand from within Enkidu, causing everyone's hair to blow back. The dust on the ground swirls, and the nearby smoldering fires each suddenly erupt into brilliant columns of flame. The villagers and guards of Tug back away in horror.
Release her, or I swear that I shall make sure the memory of Tug
is one of caution for cities who murder those seeking their aid. Shota laughs. I fear no man with the power of Mammon behind me. Then I shall challenge your god directly, Enkidu growls, stabbing Tiavon into the earth. I give you 3 times to implore Mammon to strike me down. Then I shall call upon the name of the true god once, and you shall drop dead instantly. The villagers clamor, mocking Enkidu's boast. Challenge me and you may succeed, but challenge Mammon? Shota again laughs. You are a fool that shall soon be dead. Tug was not always this mad. What has brought about this sickness? Enkidu asks. While our leaders floundered, the Shish continued down the coast, raiding every village and killing all whom they could not sell into slavery. Our leaders would not act, but Mammon's wisdom came to me and showed me what had to be done to protect my city. I burned the city elders and their families before the fires of Mammon, and sent out our ships to rout the Shish south of Urar. Tug was spared the fate of that city, because we did not cower to what opposed us. Our city is strong now, and that is because of the power of Mammon. The Shish are raiders and pirates, not a trained army. Your city persevered because you showed courage. Had you showed that strength against the demons that assaulted us, both our cities would now flourish, Enkidu says. Enough, Shota yells. Great god of desires, Mammon. I call upon thee to strike down this blasphemer, boil his eyes, and roast his viper's tongue. Nothing happens. Enkidu grins. Perhaps your god is busy having himself a shit. Try again. You have 2 more attempts. Angered, Shota throws himself to the dirt and tears his clothes. Screaming, he implores Mammon to strike Enkidu down. Again, nothing happens. Mammon requires a sacrifice, Shota pleads. Offer yourself so that the insults to him do not go unpunished. If you must give your god payment for his services, is he then a whore or just a sellsword? Enkidu asks. His taunts stir up the villagers of Tug, and a great fire is made in the furnace at the base of the ziggurat. Dozens of men and women throw themselves upon the fire, praying for divine wrath against Enkidu. Do you not see the power of God now, mocker? Tug offers themselves to Mammon because they know him to be faithful and true. Your lack of faith is disgusting, Shota yells with triumph. I do not worship any aspect of nature or created being, Enkidu challenges. The sea is ruled by the winds, but it crushes the land with waves. The mountains defy the winds unmoved. The sun dries up the sea and stills the air, but is shoved aside by the moon. When she becomes jealous of the attention, all of nature forms a circle, and no aspect is superior. I worship the architect that designed that system, not another piece of its work. Lies! Mammon is the most powerful of all. The sea swallows all. The sun can shine for all eternity. Mammon is these things. Mammon swallows all. Mammon shines for eternity as the sun. Mammon, destroy him for his blasphemy. Do not ignore us. Please show him your wrath. Enkidu nods, satisfied by what is seen. You and your god have failed to kill me. That was your 3rd try. Damn you, Shota growls. The villagers cease throwing themselves into the fire, confused as to why Enkidu has not been punished by Mammon. I do not mock my god or tempt him. I will not beg for his power to be shown. I already know that he will do what is right, for he alone is good in this world. Shota moves towards Enkidu, but the warrior priest is much faster, and he is able to decapitate his attacker with a single flash of his Yazatan diamond steel.
As I promised, after your third attempt, you are slain. I've carried out the will of the one true God, Enkidu says, sheathing his sword. Those holding Lianlin back away in terror. Tarvin catches the young woman in his arms, for she is too weak to stand. The remaining villagers flee for their safety, terrified of the power of Enkidu and his god. Come, Enkidu says. Let us brush the dirt of Tug from our feet and continue. She is too weak to make the journey all the way back home, Tarvin says, holding up Lianlin. The trip is many days, and she would not likely survive. Let us put several hours between us and Tug, and then make camp, Enkidu replies. Then we shall discuss what next to do. Making a fire in a small clearing, the trio forms a camp for the night. While Enkidu hunts game for dinner, Tarvin works to clean out Lianlin's wounds. She shies away from the fire, now terrified of the primal force that killed so many around her so gruesomely. Too weak to speak, she drinks nearly all of Tarvin's water skin and greedily devours most of the meat brought back by Enkidu. Damn Tug for what they have done to you, Tarvin growls. That city's time is short, Enkidu says. The Shish will not stay away forever. Once they have licked their wounds, they will return and get revenge for being thwarted before. They deserve everything that comes to them, Tarvin says, hatred in his voice. I know that I am guilty of this fault as well at times, but do not dwell on your hatred. Hate can only spread and blind your decision-making. Tarvin hesitates for a moment before finally swallowing back his anger and nodding. How can they do such horrible things to other people? There are many faiths out there that are corrupted by darkness. Ungodly creatures jealous of his light will do whatever they can to taint his creations. I believe that this idea of mammon likely began in a similar way. What gives you the assurance that your faith is the correct one? Because I have seen evidence of his works. It is far more noble for someone such as you, who has not seen truth, to believe in his heart. You would be much more rewarded for your faith than I. Tarvin laughs uncomfortably. I do not think I am ready for that kind of commitment. That is fine, Enkidu smiles. God will not allow me to give up on you. After camping for 2 days, Lianlin regains enough of her strength to move on her own. Here, Tarvin says, handing Lianlin some rabbit stew. You need to eat. The girl is still in shock, completely shut down and silent. We cannot even begin to understand the terrible things she has been through these past weeks, Enkidu says. We are fortunate to have found her alive. Are we? Tarvin asks, walking away from Lianlin. Maybe she is too traumatized. She might never recover from what those bastards did to her. He balls his fists in anger. Damn them! Lianlin was the loudest and bravest of all of us. This is not the same girl that rode out of our city to save us. She still has her life, Enkidu argues. For that, we must be thankful. With enough time, even the deepest of wounds may heal so long as they are not fatal. I hate them for what they did to her. I wish we could destroy the entire city for their evil. As do I, but we simply do not have the time to spare on vengeance. We must return home as soon as she is able to travel. Everyone is counting on us for the aid we are able to bring back. But we have not succeeded in finding any aid. Tarvin is confused. To him, their journey has been a failure. That is not true. We will be collecting the maids of Phi from Samsara. They will be able to assist us in replanting our fields and orchards. On top of that, we also have the blessed water from Zyle. With that, we will be able to grow the seedlings that the maidens plant much more quickly and stronger than they ever normally would have grown on their own. But none of that will be enough.
We needed building supplies and manpower. We're sorely lacking both. And we will venture farther next time. But if we get the seedlings planted immediately, we will buy Kataltakuk more time while that aid is sought out. While they are talking, Lianlin begins to drink the broth from her stew. Enkidu notices this and smiles. See, she will come around. We just have to give her some time and space. Could the two of us not return to Tug and raid the city ourselves? All of their supplies could go towards rebuilding Kataltakuk. We know that the priest of Mammon was evil, but we know nothing about the other villagers. They could have been manipulated or threatened into their beliefs. We are not justified in stealing from them. They have been given a reprieve from their sinful ways, and we must allow them the opportunity to turn away from Mammon now that his priest is dead. We'll only do harm in the same way that the Sakari did to us if we attack them. So what? In desperate times such as these, we cannot worry about the fates of anyone other than our own people. We must ensure that they survive at all costs, even if it means taking from others. Enkidu shakes his head. No, we would become no better than the Sakari, the Shish, or Galt raiders. Doing evil for evil is not the way. Do the motives behind our actions not matter more than the actions themselves? We are trying to save our city. And do they not also believe that what they are doing is for the greater good of their own people? Both sides believe they are in the right. When it is this way, the bloodshed that follows stains us all. Tarvin grows frustrated and allows his emotions to get the best of him. With this, he says something he immediately regrets, but is unable to take back. How can you take the moral high ground with me when you lay with your kinsman's wife? Enkidu is silent for a long time, choosing his words carefully. He does not wish to speak out of anger. In the past, a younger and less experienced version of himself would have lashed out and caused even more hurt feelings. After seeing so much misery and despair, Enkidu swallows the insult and changes the subject. Go to sleep. We will be heading back towards Arpa in the morning. I believe that Lianlim has regained enough strength for us to reach the lake by next nightfall. Tarvin goes and sits beside Lianlim in the fire. The girl looks over at him, then Enkidu, before returning to slurping at her stew. Enkidu turns around and looks back in the direction of Tug. He is not wrong to have these feelings. I too wish strongly to destroy that evil city for what they have done, but I must prioritize saving Kataltakuk over revenge. One day, I pray that young Tarvin will understand why I have made the decisions I have. Enkidu thinks solemnly. Morning comes, and the last embers of their campfire smolders. Enkidu awakens to find that Tarvin is gone. Where has that boy gone off so early? Enkidu mutters. He sees that Lianlim is already awake and staring at the red-orange embers of the fire as if in a trance. He went back to Tug, Lianlim whispers, not looking up from the fire. What? Enkidu shouts in surprise. He went back there alone? Stupid child! Damn it! We must go save that foolish boy before he gets himself killed. He reaches for Lianlim's hand, but she instinctively pulls away from his touch in fright. No! Lianlim screams. I will never go back to that city, never! Then stay here and wait for us to return, Enkidu says. But I cannot leave that boy to his own recklessness. Wait! Lianlim shouts, standing up quickly as Enkidu heads for his horse. Do not leave me alone! Then make your choice, Enkidu says sternly. I'm sorry, but I do not have the luxury of time to coddle your trauma. We must save Tarvin before he suffers a fate similar, or worse than your own. If you care about him as much as I do, then you will follow me and do whatever is necessary to rescue him. Lianlim takes a deep breath, trying to suppress her feelings of fear and anxiety. Returning to Tug so soon after escaping may break her entirely. but she would never be able to live with herself if she left Tarvin to the same end. Tarvin is my friend. I will go with you and save him. City of Tug. Enkidu and Lianlim approached the city from the south, having gone wide through the marshes of Golgotha in order not to be spotted. Larger than Cataltakuk, but smaller than a megacity like Levant or Jericho, Tug had a total population over 10,000 before the rise of the priesthood of Mammon and the battles with the Shish. Now, less than 200 villagers remain in the city. The walls around Tug are a fairly recent addition, built in response to the constant attacks from Shish raiders. They are not complete all the way around the city. Enkidu and Lianlim slip through an unfinished section of the wall and quickly subdue the first guard they encounter on patrol. Enkidu covers the guard's mouth with his right hand and immediately pulls him into Tiavan between his ribs. "Move quietly," Enkidu says, dragging the man back outside and out of view behind some large foundation stones, waiting to be moved into place and mortared. "The numbers are not in our favor." The pair from Cataltakuk work their way through the shadows of the city, searching for any sign of their missing companion. "They keep the prisoners in the basement of the ziggurat," Lianlim says, pointing to the large temple complex, where they found her before. "That is also where the sacrificial furnace is stoked." "What kind of defenses do they have?" Enkidu asks, looking beyond to the temple complex. "The gates are currently shut tightly and locked. I have never noticed more than 4 guards there at any time, but the one in charge also acts as an executioner." Lianlim shudders in horror, forced to relieve painful memories of torture. "He promised that he would be the one to end my life when Mammon was finished with me." She looks over at Enkidu with sincerity. "Do not take him lightly. He is ruthless and powerful. He is no man, he is a devil." "I take no one lightly," Enkidu replies. "That is an easy way to be taken by surprise, and I do not like surprises." "We only have your sword to fight with," Lianlim says. Enkidu tosses the girl a sword taken from the slain guard from earlier. "How competent are you with a sword?" Lianlim swings the blade awkwardly several times. "I would be more comfortable with my bow, but I never got it back after they knocked me unconscious." She notices Enkidu is still looking at her. "I will figure it out. I just have to make sure that my enemy is on the receiving end." Enkidu nods. "Do not try to be fancy. There's no shame in taking an opponent down from behind, before they are even aware of your presence. Stealth right now is our ally." "You mean take them by surprise?" Enkidu again nods. "Why do you think I dislike surprises?" The two continue through the city, taking out several more patrolling guards along the way. After having fought the Sakari, a few human guards are no challenge at all for Enkidu. "What can you tell me about the human sacrifices?" Enkidu asks. "Is there a ceremony they must perform? I know it must be difficult remembering anything about your time here, but I need to know as much as possible to be able to save Tarvin." "He is in great danger," Lianlim whispers. "They only kept me alive to abuse and torture me. I do not believe for a second that they were unable to sacrifice me. And I know they did what they did to me out of their own sick enjoyment. They will not do the same to Tarvin. He will be sacrificed straight away. Just like Warad." She trails off, shutting her eyes, so as to stop seeing in her mind her fellow Cataltakuk rider being burned alive and screaming as his body blackened. Lianlim can swear that she can still smell the flesh cooking beside her. "We will check the prison beneath the temple first. If we are lucky, we can be in and out with Tarvin before anyone knows we are even there. And if we are unlucky, then we'll have to rescue him in front of many witnesses. It will be unpleasant, but the outcome will be the same. Lanlam stares at the man with confusion. She is unsure if Enkidu is arrogant, or just so sure of his abilities and limitations that he knows without a shadow of a doubt that no one in this city stands a chance at besting him in combat. The gates are shut this time, Enkidu whispers in frustration. Last time we were here, those gates leading into the temple complex were open. We will need someone from the inside to open up the gates before we can enter. And how will we be able to accomplish that without announcing our presence? You will cause a diversion elsewhere in the city that will require the guards inside of the temple complex to exit in order to lend their aid. Once the gates are opened, I will take those guards out and slip inside. What do you suggest? Lanlam asks, not sure she wants to know what insane plan he has come up with. Despite her caution, she cannot deny that Enkidu's strategies during the Sakari siege led to the survival of many Kataltakuk's citizens. Fire is always a good choice, Enkidu smiles. Lanlam thinks of the furnace of Mammon and shudders. Very appropriate. A city that offers sacrifices to the flames deserves to burn. Where do you think it best to start this diversionary fire? It will need to be far enough away that they can see it from the temple, but also not allow their deaths to be heard from within. Are you familiar with such a place? We could set fire to their granary, Lanlam says, pointing over to a large wooden silo. It will burn quickly, but it is also important enough that they will work to put it out as fast as possible. Enkidu curses to himself. I hate resorting to the tactics of the Sakari. Setting fires in a city seems wrong. Their tactics were effective. That is why we are employing them, not because they are morally right, Lanlam says. You want to save Tarvin, yes? I am not refraining from what needs done. I just do not do it without a heavy heart. If there is even a single innocent soul in this city, I prefer not to lead to their starvation and death through my actions. If they did not support the beliefs and rituals of their city, they would leave. Everyone here shares the same blood on their hands. The two part ways, Lanlam slipping away to set the diversionary fire in the granary. Enkidu waits, watching nervously for the first signs of smoke. He prays that Lanlam will not run into any resistance and will return to him safe. She has already gone through so much, he wants nothing more in the world right now than to bring both her and Tarvin home safely. As planned, the granary smokes and begins to catch fire. Shouting begins to fill the air and the temple complex comes to life with activity. The gates begin to open and 4 guards rush out to assist in putting out the flames. Before any of the men even know what is happening, the shadow of a man passes over them, his sword flashing like lightning. Each of the guards falls to the street dead. Enkidu dashes into the temple complex and ties the gates open, so that no other guards will be able to trap him inside, should a confrontation occur. He is shortly joined by Lanlam, who manages to avoid running into any guards or villagers. The temple complex itself was once used for a previous god of the harvest known as Puzara Muri. While not his god, Enkidu was always respectful towards the followers of Puzara Muri. Puzara Muri's sect was confined to Tug, and did not engage in any immoral behavior such as human sacrifice or sexual depravity. If Tug truly did abandon a peaceful god to worship Mammon, there is little that can be done now to save this city. They have already demonstrated the depths of evil they will sink to for Mammon, through their treatment of Lanlam and Warad. Only a single outcome remains in Enkidu's mind set for Tug. A muscular man with a black mask made of patched leather, made from animal skins, carrying an enormous double-sided axe, begins to walk up the steps to the ziggurat. That is the executioner, Lanlam whispers. He is the one who carries out the murders of those they determine are unfit for the fires. With the priest dead, He is likely also the leader of their faith now, Enkidu says. He will command a lot of power over the remaining villagers still faithful to Mammon. The executioner is greeted by 5 robed priests before they all walk up a second set of steps into the temple itself. "We have to hurry before they are able to sacrifice Tarvin," Lianlim says. "I do not see any other reason for them to have all gathered together like this right now." Enkidu nods. "I will handle infiltrating the temple and rescuing Tarvin. Go now, and find someplace to stay out of sight. As soon as I have Tarvin, we will flee back the way we came. If I do not return by daybreak, leave by yourself and escape by way of the marshes to Lake Arpa. There, you will find a hermit Yazata named Zyle. Tell him you are my companion, and he will protect you." Lianlim does not bother to argue, fading back into the shadows unseen. She doesn't think that she would be much help to Enkidu in battle in her condition anyway. She refuses to get in his way, and possibly get all of them killed. Just a short while ago, she would have stubbornly questioned Enkidu and refused to be bossed around. But after the horrors of the Sakari invasion and the tortures at the hands of the priests and guards of Mammon, Lianlim has mellowed greatly. The wild and rebellious teen that set out on horseback to save her city was forced to grow up and mature quickly in a world growing darker and more unforgiving each day. Inside the ziggurat, the battered and broken form of Tarvin hangs from ropes above a blood-stained sacrificial altar. Tarvin is shirtless and both eyes are swollen shut. Black bruises color his face, sides, and chest, indicating many broken ribs and internal injuries. While he is not much of a fighter, Tarvin did not go down without a struggle, and several priests of Mammon were killed before a single blow from the executioner rendered him unconscious for hours. "You are stupid," the executioner says, lifting Tarvin's head up by the chin. "You rescued your friend, and managed to escape with all 3 of your lives. Why did you come back here? What is it that you hope to accomplish? Did you think that you could bring the city down all by yourself?" He laughs loudly. "You, a scrawny boy from a farming village. You are no warrior. You have thrown your life away for nothing. You have accomplished nothing." Tarvin is unable to speak, only making a few weak grunts as he struggles to breathe through a shattered nose and a broken jaw. The executioner grins, relishing his handiwork. "Mammon will appreciate your bravery. The blood of a man willing to die for his beliefs is worth much more than one who cowers in desperation and fear, begging for mercy. Never once did you beg. I admire that." Several villagers run into the temple in a panic. "Fire! Fires are breaking out all over the city!" The executioner looks toward several more guards that stand near the temple entrance with long spears. "Go! Deal with whatever disturbance is occurring. I can handle this on my own." Nodding, the guards jog out of the temple. As soon as the men are out of view, a commotion is heard outside. The flash of Yazatan steel and diamond severs limbs and leaves all of the men lying dead on the temple steps. Enkidu enters the temple, decapitating 2 villagers standing in the doorway without hesitation and with a single swing of his sword. 2 more guards move towards him with their spears, but Enkidu is already in motion. Tiavon slashes through the first spear just as Enkidu pivots to cut through the neck of its owner. With one fluid motion, Enkidu turns with a kick to the other guard before stabbing him through the side and a small gap in his leather armor. "So," the executioner says, "you did not come back here all alone after all." "Release the boy to me," Enkidu growls, blood dripping from his outstretched blade. "Do this, and you will die quickly and without suffering." The executioner begins to laugh. "I know all about suffering. Do you think that you can really teach me anything new?" Enkidu flings the blood off his sword, and the blade shimmers with divine power. "We are past the point of learning. All that lies before you is judgment. Who the hell do you think you are, that you can come here into my temple and threaten me? I am Shu Daral, the great deliverer of souls. I am the blade of Mammon and the fountain of sacrificial blood. All death in Tug comes through my decision or my axe alone. Enkidu looks down at the bodies lying around him on the floor. That no longer seems to hold true. My blade now claims authority over life in Tug. Shu Daral growls in anger. Damn you! Let us see how sharp that tongue of yours is after I have severed your head from your body. Enkidu darts forward, thrusting with a stab that Shu Daral blocks with his axe. To the executioner's horror, the tip of Tiavon begins to pierce through the blade of his axe head. Growling, Shu Daral exerts greater physical strength and shoves Enkidu back just before his weapon can be shattered. Shu Daral begins to sweat, nervous as to how Enkidu was able to move so quickly and overpower his axe. Shu Daral is confident in his weapon and finds it impossible to believe that anyone can be stronger than him. What is that sword made of? Shu Daral asks. Only a blade of magical craftsmanship could ever best my axe. My weapon is constructed of the hardest metals in all the world. Enkidu lightly swings his sword back and forth, staying limber. It cannot be that hard. My blade pierced it with little difficulty. Shu Daral grows even more angry. Without that magic sword, you could never survive a swing of my axe. My axe means death. My axe is a reaper of souls. Enkidu sheaths Tiavon. Really? Do you think so? What would you have me fight you with? Then, to be fair, I cannot go up against an axe of that size and hardness empty-handed. Shu Daral calms considerably, thinking he will have an easy victory over Enkidu once he is unable to wield his magical sword. Believing Enkidu to just be another regular man without his weapon, Shu Daral instructs him to pick up one of the fallen guard's spears. Enkidu grips the two-handed weapon awkwardly. He thrusts the spear several times forward, causing Shu Daral to grin widely. Well, this does not seem fair, Enkidu mutters. I'm not used to having to keep both hands on my weapon at all times. Prove to me how good you really are, swordsman, the executioner laughs. A truly skilled warrior can wield any weapon with success. The executioner screams, charging at Enkidu with an overhead two-handed axe slash. Enkidu raises his arm, trying to defend with a much smaller spear handle. The weaker weapon is split in two, but instead of Enkidu being cut by the axe as a result, both sides of the axe head fall to the floor with loud crashes. The weight of the blades splinter the ground and sink in several inches. Enkidu tosses the broken spear to the sides. Shall we both fight unarmed, or may I use my sword now? Shu Daral sweats heavily, thinking Enkidu some kind of monster or devil in man's skin. Sure. We can fight with no weapons. That will work just fine for me. He knows that he is much larger than the other man and will be able to easily crush him to death with his bare hands. Shu Daral moves in with a right hook that Enkidu deflects with both hands, before kicking the back of the executioner's knee to make his legs buckle. Enkidu follows up with an elbow to the face that is hard enough to result in a loud crack as Shu Daral's spine twists violently and snaps. The executioner collapses to the floor in a heap, his head twisted around unnaturally to the side and slightly back. Enkidu hurries over to Tarvin, cutting the ropes to lower the young man into his arms. It's going to be okay now, he reassures his companion. It is all over. You're safe. Enkidu? Tarvin whispers weakly. I messed up. Yes, Enkidu smiles, tears in his eyes. He is glad that he was able to make it back in time to save him before he was sacrificed to Mammon or any other evil god. Did you doubt for a second that I would come back to save you, foolish boy? What were you thinking trying to do this all on your own? You said we had no time for revenge. I could not let that go so easy. I'm sorry. Enkidu of Clan Hyalura. A voice growls from behind. Finally, I get to meet a famous butcher of gods. Your clan has earned quite a reputation in certain circles for the trouble you have caused the various faiths of this region. The executioner begins to shake violently. His body thrashes and convulses. Enkidu sets Tarvin on the ground behind him and grips his sword tightly in preparation of whatever he is about to face. Whatever is happening, he knows it is not normal. In this world, when things go out of the ordinary, it becomes dangerous quickly. Humanity is not well adapted to be able to survive the many supernatural threats the world hides in its shadows. Despite a tremendous dark power descending upon them, Enkidu has a difficult time sensing the otherworldly presence. What he is able to sense is unlike anything he has ever before felt. Poor Enkidu, the executioner laughs. You must be racking your tiny monkey brain, trying to figure out just what it is that is happening here. His body lifts up to its feet, the torso still bent over backwards, so that his head lies below his waist. No longer a man, the executioner straightens his posture to reveal he now has the face and horns of a bull. I have heard so much about you and your clan over the years. You have a history of challenging the gods of this land like no one else since the kill squads of the 11th Choir and that butcher General Vanakin. This causes us who remain great frustration. He smiles, revealing sharp fangs like a viper's. And also great opportunity. For every god the Hyalura kill, another bit of real estate opens up for us that remain to claim as our own. You are no god, Enkidu growls. The bull creature snorts with laughter. You once challenged my priest Shota to summon me to strike you down. Before I thought it amusing. How dare that worm try to order me around? Now, I wish I had complied with his prayers. You are Mammon? Enkidu asks, keeping his eyes firmly on the creature. Enkidu has faced raiders, ghouls, Sakari invaders, and even fallen Yazata, but unlike his ancestors, he has never faced anything on this level before. If what he says is true, this Mammon could scale even higher than the Grigori Zyle. Enkidu can feel his arm shaking. He tries to ignore the instinctual fear and steel his nerves. Did my father and grandfather really fight and kill actual false gods like this on their own? Do I have what it takes? Can I really defeat this creature? I must. I have no room for error. Too many people are depending on me. I promised Lianlim and Tarvin that I would see them both home safe no matter what. This is what many who adore me say, Mammon laughs. In other places, I have other names. I am the great beast god. I am the gluttony of man. I am the horned Mayman. I am the wealth. I am the prophet of profit. That is a long list of titles. Do they mean anything worthwhile? Enkidu questions, remaining defiant. Speaking up works to push aside his doubts and fears and get his focus back into the next mindset for battle. They mean that you should be bowing before me, Mammon growls, raising a hand to compel the humans to their knees. Only Enkidu is able to resist, made immune through his Yazatan blood and the power of Tiavan. I do not bow before monsters or devils, Enkidu growls. Do not compare me to such lowly things, Mammon says with disgust. I had power over the crawling things of this world before the first Yazata ever stepped foot on this rock. Only the Creator holds power over this world, Enkidu says, and in his honor I shall take your blasphemous head. Take my head? Mammon laughs. You are but a man. What can a man do against a god? Enkidu takes a step forward, slashing at the creature with blinding speed. Mammon leaps back, thinking he has evaded the attack with ease. Your speed is not such that I need fear. After all, you are just a mortal. One of Mammon's horns falls at his feet, and a mist of blood sprays out from the creature's forehead. Mammon screams out in surprise. I think you overestimate yourself. You dodged my second swing, but that was merely my backswing. You did not even react to my initial movement. I do not think that you were able to follow me with your eyes fast enough. Nonsense! Mammon screams, holding his wound with one hand. A mortal cannot be that fast. You have corrupted this land and its people, Enkidu says. The ground of Tug is sour, and may never recover from your evil. This city must be purged and purified. You hold no authority here, Mammon screams. Tug is mine. This is my city. These are my subjects. Then you can rule over the ashes, after I've burnt the evil from Tug. The corruption cannot risk being spread elsewhere. The corruption is already all around you. Are you so blind that you cannot see it? Every city has its own gods and goddesses. The creator you devote yourself to is no more authentic than any of the dozens of others of this region. Your blind loyalty prevents you from seeing that you are no different from any of my followers. You lie, Enkidu growls. My god is no impostor. The Creator is a true omnipotent deity. He is not some devil playing at self-importance. Mammon's eyes turn red and his remaining horn elongates and turns black as it sharpens into a bladed weapon. Its entire body grows in size to become more imposing, and a long tail ending in the head of a serpent emerges from his lower back. Two black, bat-like wings extend behind the creature. I tire of your insults, monkey. I am no devil. I existed long before any of the Yazata, and I will continue to thrive long after all of mankind is dead and forgotten. Enkidu, Tarvin whispers. You cannot truly intend to defeat this creature, can you? Enkidu nods slowly, but with confidence. He has disrespected the Creator, and his religion has blackened the hearts of all of Tug. Did his followers not harm you and land them greatly? He is the one responsible for all of that suffering and pain. They were just men, and they paid for their crimes when you struck them down. Mammon is more than a man. I do not know about gods or devils, but I do know he is far more dangerous than any creature I've ever encountered before. If the Sicarii are a mountain of strength, he is surely the atmosphere and clouds that circle high above the mountaintop, forever out of our reach. Humans can never reach those heights, no matter how hard we try to stretch out our arms. Then it is all more important that I end his evil today. Here in Tug, Enkidu says, gripping his sword tightly. Have you said your goodbyes? Mammon taunts. Enkidu prepares for the creature to strike, but he is caught from the side by a clawed hand that grabs his head and drives him hard against the far wall. Mammon presses Enkidu's face into the stone, enjoying the sounds of the human skull fracturing. 2 arrows speed out of the doorway, catching Mammon in the throat and left shoulder, forcing him to release Enkidu and leap backwards.
Lianlum?
Enkidu coughs, collapsing to his knees. His face is covered in blood and he can barely keep his eyes open.
Why did you come back?
I never left, Lianlum says bluntly. Traces of her past defiant and self-confident persona shine through. I went to find my bow and quiver.
Stupid bitch monkey,
Mammon growls, pulling out the arrows with winces of pain and discomfort.
You think my followers made you suffer? You do not know what true suffering is, but I will show you.
Tiavon pulsates in Enkidu's hand. He can feel strength welling up inside of him as the blade of his ancestors speaks to his soul and his Yazatan blood. Enkidu's eyes glow with a blue light, and he stands back up, holding his sword out towards Mammon. You are not yet finished fighting me.
You are nothing,
Mammon growls.
I have already seen your limits, and I am disappointed, to say the least. My priests and executioner were not worthy of my power. If they were unable to kill worthless trash like you.
Enkidu rushes Mammon, slashing furiously with Tiavon. Mammon defends with his claws, and the two dart across the temple complex, colliding violently. Stone begins to crumble from the walls of the surrounding buildings, and the ground itself swells outwards from the force of their impacts. The two fighters separate, both of their chests heaving. Blood runs down both fighters' faces.
You are not at all normal, Enkidu Hyalura,
Mammon growls.
The strength of your swings and the power of your resolve is not of this world.
I was trained well, Enkidu says, remaining cautious not to be taken by surprise from the side again. He does not dare take his eyes off of Mammon, or let his guard down at all. The creature is resourceful and deceptive. He needs only a single opportunity to strike and end the battle.
No amount of training can raise a human to the level of a god,
Mammon growls.
So what are you really?
I am a man, Enkidu says. Nothing more. But you, he growls, you are no god.
You do not get to decide that. It is through the prayer and devotion of my followers that is determined. Their fear and adoration, their sacrifices and blood that I am deified.
If you sacrifice all of your followers, what will you be left with? Enkidu asks. What is a king without subjects or a god without worshippers?
None of them matter,
Mammon screams in frustration.
I can raise new followers wherever I go, but only after I am rid of you and the cursed Hyalura clan.
Tiavon begins to shine with a bright white light. My blade calls out to me for your destruction. You will not escape this city to begin anew anywhere else, Enkidu says. Mammon laughs nervously.
A few lucky strikes and an angelic blade is not enough for you to kill a being such as I. No matter what kind of weapon you wield, you are still just a mortal man.
More citizens of Tug appear within the temple complex and gather near the steps of the great ziggurat. The remaining priests of Mammon work feverishly to stoke the fires of the great furnace and lend aid to their god in his time of need. Mammon attacks with a right hook, but Enkidu blocks with the edge of his sword, Tiavon's radiance completely absorbing the blow. Mammon screams out in pain as his arm snaps across Enkidu's sword and hangs limply to his side.
What are you doing?
Mammon screams to his followers in tears and cradling his broken arm.
Offer yourselves to me as sacrifices immediately, so that I may heal myself and gain the power needed to destroy these blasphemers.
The villagers look around at each other nervously. Many begin to question how a supposed god is struggling to defeat one human man in combat. Other villagers toss themselves from the top of the steps into the furnace below, all in commitment and belief to their god. As their broken bodies burn and their brief pained screams echo outward, Mammon is emblazoned with power. The creature throws his arm out, resetting the bone and healing instantly. He grins as he feels the tremendous power of devotion welling up from within him. Enkidu rushes, slashing horizontally for Mammon's neck with Tiavan. As the faith of his followers is returned to him as strength after their sacrifices, Mammon is able to manifest a black double-bladed axe of energy to defend against Enkidu's sword. The two strain against each other, but Mammon's boosted strength begins to put him over Enkidu, and he is able to force the man to a knee. "Yes!" Mammon shouts gleefully. "This is where you belong. All humans belong on their knees in the presence of a god." Enkidu strains to push himself back up to his feet, gritting his teeth with increased effort. "I see no god before me, just a heartless coward that finds the devotion of humans to be nothing more than a tool to further his own selfish indulgences. You are a petty impostor, not even worthy to be one of the Aesir." With a surprising show of will, Enkidu overpowers Mammon and pushes him back and off balance. As the creature stumbles, Tiavan flashes across his center. Blood sprays outward, but the wound is not deep enough to be fatal. Mammon clutches his chest, bleeding heavily. "Damn you!" he coughs. "This should not be happening." "As I demonstrated to the priest before you, a true god empowers his followers, not the other way around. You use them up without any regret, as if they were nothing." "They are mine," Mammon screams, "and I will do with them whatever I please. All of you, give your lives to me now. All of your rewards will come true. This life of misery is at an end. Paradise awaits the faithful." As the remaining citizens of Tug climb the temple steps, Lianlim pushes past them to the top. She tries to hold the people back, urging them not to throw their lives away. "Stop this," Lianlim pleads. "He does not care about any of you. What has he ever done for the city other than demand sacrifices? You are livestock to this monster, human cattle. The only meaning he sees in your lives is what power he can obtain for himself through your deaths." "He saved us from the raiders," a woman shouts. "Did he?" Lianlim asks. "How many raiders did he kill? How many of you had to die for your guards to become strong enough to overcome the Shish? A real god could have intervened without needing your lives in return." "You know nothing about us," the woman shouts, shoving Lianlim out of the way and stepping up to the edge of the steps. "This is the ultimate meaning to our lives. Giving oneself fully to God is the purest of joys, and final and best reward." "Idiot!" Lianlim shouts, trying to reach for the woman and pull her away from the edge. "Our lives get meaning through us living them. All of our experiences and the lives we touch. That is what matters." The two struggle, but the woman manages to pull away and lose her balance, falling into the furnace as she ultimately wanted. Her brief screams cause the other villagers of Tug unease. Lianlim holds out her sword, trying to deter the others from moving forward. Another woman walks up defiantly. She pushes herself against the sword's tip, making herself bleed. "Kill us if you want. We will still be dying for the glory of Mammon." Lianlim pulls her sword back before quickly swinging it at the woman's legs. The woman shrieks in agony as Lianlim cleaves off her right leg just below the knee. "I will not make a martyr out of you. You will survive for several minutes before you bleed out on these steps. That should give Enkidu more than enough time to kill your god." Enkidu pushes Mammon back, forcing the creature on the defensive. Mammon is unable to retaliate against Enkidu's furious swings. "What are you waiting for?" Mammon screams. "Kill yourselves already! Do your duty! Make your pathetic lives worth something!" Lianlim stares into the eyes of the citizens of Tug as they stand frozen on the temple steps. Does that sound like a god to you? I do not know what Mammon actually is, but the fear in his voice is not what I would attribute to any kind of deity. Do you really want to throw away your lives for that selfish thing? It starts with one, but slowly more and more citizens of Tug turn around and begin to walk back down the temple steps. The stranglehold of Mammon on the city of Tug has come to an end, broken not by violence, but seeing their god for what he really is, pathetic and cowardly. "What are you doing?" Mammon cries out, his back pushed up against the stone wall of the sacrificial furnace. "If you turn away from me, I will not turn away from you. No, I will pursue you to the ends of the world for my vengeance. You will find there is nowhere safe from my wrath." "You should not be making plans for the future," Enkidu says. "You have no future." Before Mammon can utter another word, Tivon slashes through his axe, shattering it worse than the last. Mammon blinks several times in disbelief, no longer feeling any pain. Slowly, the creature's head falls from his body and lands at his feet, followed by a geyser of black blood erupting from its exposed neck. Enkidu walks past the shocked citizens of Tug, dragging the headless corpse of their former god. No one stops the man or says anything in protest, as he walks up the temple steps and rolls Mammon's body into his own furnace. The woman on the stairs has died of her wounds, and Tarvin climbs the steps himself, carrying Mammon's head in his arms. "I see now why you hate the false gods of this world," Tarvin whispers, staring at Mammon's face with hatred and anger. "Not all that claim falsely to be a god are as bad as this one," Enkidu admits, "but the path they can lead one upon will always end in pain and a separation from true divinity." "What about them?" Lianlim asks, looking down at the remaining Tug citizens. "How will they survive?" "That is not our concern," Enkidu says. "We cannot take care of them. Kataltakuk has its own needs. If they can avoid retaliation by the Shish, they should be able to sustain themselves on the fish of the Aris Sea and the Peleg River now that the waters of Lake Arpa are no longer dammed. Beyond that, their burden is not ours to shoulder." "But," Lianlim whispers, beginning to protest. She wants to help the people of Tug, despite what some of their people did to her and Tarvin. Both Tarvin and Enkidu are surprised that Lianlim has this kind of forgiveness in her heart. Neither thinks that they could do the same if they were in her situation. Tarvin was tortured far less severely and for a much briefer time, and he still struggles to suppress the urge not to kill every last citizen of Tug and erase their city from the world. "We did not kill Mammon to liberate the people of Tug. Do not mistake our actions as those of a hero. I was well aware of the horrors of this city as soon as I learned the identity of its patron, but I was prepared to look the other way because that is what our own people need right now. We cannot sacrifice Kataltakuk to save the other people of the world from problems they created themselves. I came back only to save Tarvin and nothing more. The people of Tug chose their poison, and if it leads to their own annihilation, then so be it." "Our elders chose to make a golden idol to present to the leader of the Sakari," Tarvin says. "How are we any different?" Enkidu rubs his temples and sighs in frustration. "Now you as well? Kataltakuk paid for that decision with many lives. We all lost people we cared about, and God did not come to aid us because we did not trust in him alone. He left us to save ourselves." "And how is that any different from Tug?" Tarvin asks. "They paid for their decisions with their lives. Are they not left in exactly the same situation as us? If God chooses to save these people, he will do so. My responsibility, our responsibility, is to our own people. What if God chose to save them through you? Did you not deliver this city from its oppressor? Whatever your motivation, the outcome is the same," Lianlim says.
How do you know that God did not plan all of this through you? Enkidu begins to argue, but stops himself with a grumble. The more he thinks about it, the more Lianlim's words make sense. Tiavon did direct him several times to continue fighting, as if killing Mammon is what God wanted him to do. Gather as much supplies as you can, Enkidu shouts. Load up your carts and your horses. If any of you wish, you may accompany us back on our journey. I have but one condition, and it is absolutely firm and immovable. Leave behind your worship of Mammon and other foreign gods. Never again should any city be tainted by that kind of evil. Several men begin to tie ropes around the statues of Mammon, scattered about the temple complex, and pull them to the ground so that they break apart into many pieces. Mammon is dead, one of the men says. May he rot in hell with the shish. Enkidu nods in approval. This is a good first step in the right direction. You will not regret this, Lianlim says. I feel in my heart that these people will be important to our future, and the survival of Katatakuk. We do not just need materials. These new citizens will provide needed muscle that will help us rebuild. I pray that you are right, Enkidu whispers. He is tired, and wishes for nothing more than rest. There is a long journey ahead, and he dreads what next awaits them on the new path home. Katatakuk. 3 men on horseback appear on the horizon overlooking the city. Katatakuk is still in ruin. Most of the buildings burnt shells. The city walls are crumbled in many places. Piles of smoking corpses continue to darken the sky with black clouds. This is it, says the eldest of the 3 men, Sisuthros. Katatakuk, the city our brother gave his life for. If the report from the captain is to be believed, growls Akupi, the second brother, we do not know if the demon invasion was even real. The people of this city could have killed our brother and lied about it. I trust the word of the captain, the final brother, Kinshe Lugao, says. The horsemen were loyal to Elamachez. They would have no reason to lie about his death. There is only one way to be sure, Sisuthros says, spurring his horse onward. We will confront the leadership of Katatakuk directly and ask them to their faces. And if you do not like the answer they give? Kinshe Lugal asks. Sisuthros only smiles, saying nothing. In the distance, a raiding party from Shish watches from the wilderness, undetected by all. Their defenses are broken, the Shish raid leader, called the Enmerker, says. The city has not yet recovered from the attack by the demons. Katatakuk would be an easy conquest, one of the Enmerker's top warriors, Nanglish Leishma, says with a crooked smile. Many of the barbarians' teeth are missing. The Shish excitedly prepare for their next raid. For them, life is all about conquest and the thrill of raiding. They do not care about their lives or anyone else's. As such, they are brutal warriors that are difficult to fight against. No amount of mental intimidation or tactics are effective against them. Their spirits or wills cannot be broken. They have no mercy or morals. Their raids end only in death and misery.